Hey everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Closing Report for February 24th, 2016. I am Frank Ochoa, aka Pivot Boss, with analysis for the upcoming session here. What we saw today in the ES is very cool. We saw a significant reversal, a major reversal off of the day's lows, and that was after an aggressive 2-day sell-off. What we saw was price obviously reach above 1939s and fail to get above that zone, and so we saw a push downward. And what I mentioned is, we're still looking for cues as to how this is going to shake out from here or here. We're not quite there yet, but I also mentioned we had this narrow 4-day range, which means that we should be looking for expansion soon. Now, one thing I left you with was watch 1870 here, because price could drop in toward that zone, reach the primary bear target here at 1880 for the week, and then see a potential squeeze higher. And we fell just shy of the primary bear target for the week here, and also that zone, but we saw it happen just shy of that zone, and we saw a major rally back into the previous month's close. So you also see here, I don't put the moving averages up often, but anytime you're in a clear trending market here, and then you see price shoot through the moving averages and come back and make them support here, that's usually a signal here that we're likely going to attempt another short squeeze ahead, at least test the levels beyond 1950 half. So this is important here, the way this plays out. I would say that a retest of 1900, that could offer the best opportunity for a defense for a shot at seeing a squeeze into 1950 half and perhaps 1970 by the end of the week. So right now, as long as price remains above 1870s here, there's still a shot to squeeze through these highs. But we got to see how price responds once you see the price levels above 1950. We want to see how the market responds to those prices. All right, now if we take a look at the intraday time frame here, one thing we were talking about in the trading room this morning was how prices were trending downward, and then found this key range down here, which told us that we were now in a digestion mode after the markdown phase. And what happens after you compress? You usually see expansion. And that key range gave us an idea of the key levels to watch, 1898 or 1877. Price pushed through the top of that key range, hit its target, pulled back, and then rallied significantly the rest of the session into 300% of that range. So that was the target here, and price just walked up. That was a significant move. We were only forecasting, based off of this movement, we were forecasting a potential move into 1921s, and this far surpassed that move. So a very, very significant rally the way this has played out. Again, 1900 is the level I'm talking about right here. If price pulls back even as low as 1900, it could still be a buying opportunity for a swing move up. But more than likely, you're going to see a push probably into 1910 if that materializes, because that's the recent pivot high here on a short-term basis. So we got to see how this plays out. But overall, any pullbacks could be buying opportunities on a swing basis. Any failure to see acceptance above 39.5 again would be an opportunity to sell it back down. All right, let's take a look at crude oil. A lot of the movement in the market here has been predicated mostly on crude oil here lately. And what we were looking for here was how price was going to respond outside of this very narrow multi-day range. I mentioned the previous week's low and the previous week's high was the zone to watch here, and expansion outside of that range will spark the next major move, directional move in this commodity. However, I did leave you with any failed rejection, failed expansion, or failed range expansion below 3102 could slingshot this thing back toward value at 3365 with a shot to see a push higher. So that's kind of what played out today. Prices failed to see any acceptance below the previous week's low, and this thing rolled higher, and that could have been what helped to push the broader market higher as well. So we have a couple of things here to look out for, but it's very, very clear that crude oil is winding up significantly right now. Once we get a move below either 30 or above, call it 34.21, but beyond that zone, you still have some areas up here, 35s. But outside of that zone could spark a major, major move. So I would say 34.21 and 30s kind of are the zone here, and we could be looking at a big time expansion phase out of this pattern here. Now, looking at the intraday time frame, one thing that was interesting here is how price is playing around some of these key levels. We're back to 32.46. We got back above 31.63. We have 33.65, which is MC wide above. So really and truly, we have a major LVN right here at 31.63. So staying above that zone, bulls want to defend for a potential squeeze back to MCB pocket 33.65. On the other hand, bears are watching 32.46 here. That's a zone here that they're defending currently after taking it offered here for a shot at seeing a retest of lows and perhaps newer lows. So we really have a very tiny range here to watch out for overnight expansion opportunities heading into the upcoming session. Okay, let's take a look at gold now. Gold is impressive here, continues to build out within our key range. We talked about how we had the blow off top here where prices just spiked 300+% of ADR, came back and set the edge, and now we have our range. And now we're trading inside that range. I thought we could see prices hold 1240.6, which is the previous week's high, but we saw a flush into the 250% expansion target of the key range here, and that was easily offered. So I think the best, highest probability opportunity right now is for a retest of 1240s to be defended. So if price climbs into 1240.6, look for bears to defend for a shot at seeing a move into 1196 half. So watch for that trade coming up. That could be a very solid, high probability 40 to 45 handle move in your favor right there. So we'll watch how that develops in the upcoming day. If you look at the intraday time frame here, you can see how price rallied into the 25% weekly expansion target. That's the 25% PivotBoss pivot here. Price rallied into that level, rejected back down, and walked its way back into the previous close after taking the previous week's high offered. So what I'm saying is if price rallies back into 1239.60 to 1240.60, that could be an area for bears to defend for a shot at pushing this thing back into 1210, followed by a move into 1196. Okay, let's take a look at the NQ now. Here's the NQ in a daily time frame. Again, very similar to the ES. We saw price coiling up within this 4-day range right here. We had less than 65% of average. That told us right there we could be looking at expansion soon. And expansion out of this range could be big. We also know that sometimes you get failed range expansion first, and then you see a slingshot move in the opposite direction. So the last thing I left you with was to watch 4080 because that's the midpoint of the key range. And at times, after you push through it, when you come back, you could see participants defend for a shot at seeing a push back to the top of the key range and then likely expansion into the next HVN above. So right now, 4085 was bid. It was bid. So I would say a retest back into 4130 or perhaps even as low as 4085 if it ever gets back there. Could be a buying opportunity for a push into 4287, 4309, and 4421. So a couple of different things to watch out for. Clearly, prices continue to coil up here within this range. It's been happening here for now 2.5 months. So we could be looking at some significant expansion as we head into March and April. So watch this range very closely. Above 42.26 squeezes much higher into the next upside targets. Failure to hold 40.85 rotates this thing back to 38.62. Looking at the intraday time frame, this was important as well. How prices played out. Our previous key range was very important from 42.30 to 41.83 half. You see how price pushed down below it, made that bottom of the range resistance, and then dropped this thing significantly into the 100, 150, and 200% expansion targets. And then when price got down here, we started to notice it round off. We saw a new low here rejected. Then we saw a higher low start to form. So our eyes turned to 41.15 to 41.13. Pre-market, we were talking about the LVN at 41.40. And pre-market, if you go back to the pre-market report, I said above 41.20 squeezes into 41.60. And we saw how price just formed this nice rounded bottom here. A perfect push through the LVN, a nice pullback, clean, and then just launched through our target at 41.60 and continued higher above 4,200. So a big time move now. This is kind of reminiscent of that gold move that we saw in the daily time frame. Very nice, well-rounded, big time expansion, a pullback defended, and then the previous high defended here on the test, and just a nice markup phase. So a solid move higher. Now what we want to see is how price responds upon a pullback. So if we get a pullback into 41.60, because that's value and it was bid, you would expect bulls to want to defend for another push higher. Below that, you have to start marking some of these LVNs. All right, let's see how this thing plays out heading into the rest of the week. Good luck and trade well.